Hey everybody, I'm Robbie Samuels, and it's my pleasure to be emceeing the book launch party for Lisa Ryan. Lisa, I know you're no stranger to releasing books into the world. This is something you've made a bit of a habit. So we're just overjoyed that you've continued to put your time and talent into creating new books for us. Smart Plant has definitely inspired so many and changed the conversation we're having around AI, and we're going to have a few guest speakers with us today who will continue that conversation. We're also going to have an interview with you and some prizes. So definitely stick around, everyone. If you have a question for Lisa, kindly write the word question in all caps in the chat and then follow it with whatever your question is. And we'll have some time at the end for questions and also a little informal hangout with the author if you're available to do that with us. Without any further delay, it is my pleasure to now introduce our first guest speaker, who doesn't really hardly need an introduction, but I'm going to give him one. I'm going to give him one anyway. Ford Saeks is an entrepreneur, business growth strategist, best-selling author, and internationally recognized speaker who has helped generate more than $1 billion, billion with a B, for companies all around the world. He's known for making complex topics practical, actionable, and well, actually useful, which is exactly what we need when we start talking about AI. So without any further delay, please join me in welcoming Ford Saeks. Ford, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, everybody. We've only got a few minutes here, so we've all gathered for the same reason. We want to leverage our knowledge and our knowledge base. And what I really like best about what Lisa's doing with her new book right now is that she's addressing the real problem, which is keeping the human in the loop. You know, in manufacturing, you've got people exiting manufacturing. They're taking their brain trust with them. You might call it tribal knowledge, right? And so AI can be used to help solve all those problems. But really, I thought with the 2 or 3 minutes that I have here today is just to cover some of the key points that I'm sharing with brands around the world right now as it relates to AI. This is no PowerPoint. This is not a keynote. This is just some insights to help you. One of the things I've learned is that people come from two camps. They're either a little bit skeptical about what AI can do, and now they're talking about Claude and Claude Cowork, and they're just confused, or they're dangerously overconfident, but they think that they really do understand AI. And when I poll my audiences and I say from 0 to 10, who's an expert, and stay up to 10, I have these people who stand at 8 and 9 and 10. And then when I interview them, they're delusionally overconfident and dangerously overconfident because they're saying they're an 8, 9, and 10, but they don't have their defaults in. They're not keeping there's no acceptable use policies. There's no training for AI. They're not using custom training. They're not using any skills. They're not using the things. So they don't know what they don't know. That's the first thing. The second thing is everybody right now with a laptop is an AI expert. I'm so glad that Robbie didn't introduce me as the ultimate AI expert because just run. Anybody who thinks they know everything but doesn't know what they don't know, run. The more I know about AI, the more I know I don't know. The difference between me and AI and what Lisa's doing with AI is we're not looking at AI through technology. We're looking at from the practical use of how it affects the daily operations, the customer journey across all roles, especially as it relates to manufacturing. I ran a manufacturing company. I had a sporting goods company. I was doing $50 million a year. I had 140 employees. I had supply chain. I did all the different things. I had manufacturing from childcare, automotive, and medical and sporting goods. So I worked in manufacturing. Most of my career have been in manufacturing. So I really like what Lisa's doing with Smart Plant because she's really addressing that problem. So again, you don't know what you don't know. Be open-minded. Make sure that you're really setting acceptable use policies for all of you, whether you're one company, whatever your role is right now. If you're watching this live or participating, or maybe you're watching the replay on social media, I encourage you to mystery shop your team on AI, on their usage, find out what they're really doing, make sure that they have acceptable use policies, and make sure that those policies are updated because training isn't something that you do once. It's something that you continue to do often. And so, with that, I think I've reached my time, but I just want to say I'm glad. Congratulations, Lisa, on this book. I know it's going to help a lot of people leverage, especially in manufacturing, to help people capture that legacy knowledge before it goes out the door. And AI is a great tool for that. And I would just say it's not what you know, it's how well you execute. And be open minded, be coachable, and be proactive. With that, Robbie, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for that wonderful kickoff. Without any further delay, I want to bring Lisa up to stage. Lisa, congratulations. I'm so excited
Thank
for you.
you. Thanks. This has been Smart Plant was such a fun book to write. It's book number 13, but I also feel that it is the luckiest book for me. It's the one that I've put the most time, the most resources, the most effort in, and it's paying off because I just think that it's a message that I've been talking about for the last 5 years with the manufacturers that I work with, and kind of bring it into that baby book that I will soon hold in my hands. I'm still anxiously awaiting for the box to arrive. And so I'm really grateful to so many people. I first, of course, have to start with my friend and mentor, Randy Gage, who is the inspiration behind this. He asked me to come up with a couple different ideas for books, and one was on legacy and succession planning, and the other was what are we going to do with the workforce of the future when AI is taking over everything. And Randy was like, that's the book you need to write now. So, and it was really a lot of fun to write. It kind of took the fiction start that I had with my last book for Gear Up for Greatness, and be able to bring that the story beginning into the nonfiction for the rest of the book. But Ford, thanks so much for kicking us off. I really appreciate it.
You're
I have
welcome.
I have great guests that you're going to meet with my friends Roger, Tamsin, and Vince. The people on the launch team, we actually had 138 people join the launch team. And that was just, you put something out there and you're not sure how people are going to respond. And then all these people that just start showing up for you and they have your back. And it was really heartwarming for that. When I looked at yesterday, and I think Robbie's going to share this too, but it reached #1 in all the categories. We have more than 30 reviews, which on a first day of launch is really a great way to start. And especially when I got to see it before I went to bed last night, that it had reached #1 in industrial relations and manufacturing. And then the surprising one doesn't sound like a big deal, but it was 724 in workplace culture, which workplace culture is a ginormous category. So it to be even in the top 1,000, well, I was pretty happy with that. When it came to the book, Shane and Nelson, my editor, did a beautiful job because I had a lot of quotes in there and just have those pop out boxes. So the book is visually stunning. There was just so many people involved in the production of the book. And of course, I have to say, reach out and sincerely thank my husband, Scott, who is always my best cheerleader when it comes to all this crazy stuff that I do as an entrepreneur. So I know Robbie and I are going to get more into the book itself, but it really focuses on what happens when automation is moving faster than the people around it. Kind of starts with a cautionary tale of it starts in the spring of 2030 with a plant meltdown, basically, because of what was happening, and kind of took us backwards to see all of the decisions that were removed from the process of human judgment and what we can do to make sure that we're not doing that. So again, I just want to thank you all so much for being part of this whole celebration. I'm grateful that you're here and really, really grateful to have some fun on this interview with Robbie. So let's get this party started.
All right, let's dive right in. So, Randy, you've mentioned this before. Randy Gage kind of challenged you to come up with a few new ideas. Now, again, both of you, Randy and yourself, are not new to writing lots and lots of books. Both of you have over a dozen books a piece. But is a book for you, was that because of the kind of conversation you could then attract people to? Like why that format for this moment? Clearly, you have something to say about how AI is impacting the automation and the decision making and where the humans are being brought in or out of that conversation. But why did you decide to do that through a book and not like, are you doing a TEDx talk or, you know what I mean? There's a lot of other ways to bring idea, start a podcast about the topic. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
why a book format and what are you hoping will happen for it?
I just love writing books, which is why this is book number 13, because every year or two I feel the need to hold another baby book in my hand. So it was thinking about what's going to be the next one. But the one thing that Randy has really been challenging me for the 5 years 6 years now that I've been working with him is to come up with what is that seminal book? What is where Lisa Ryan is basically going to make that dent in the universe? I don't know if I'd go that far with it, but it was his encouragement, like just pushing me and pushing me and pushing me to come up with the concept. I had the first draft that I gave to him, and he's like, "There's not enough Lisa Ryan in here. You need to put more Lisa Ryan in here." So I had to go back and just think about, okay, if I was having a conversation with somebody, what would I actually say to them? And holding back the snark, but kind of like that no BS. You know what? This is what's going to happen if you continue to do this, or if you don't start doing this, or whatever it is. So but for me, a book is it's my favorite way of getting my message out. I've had my podcast now for 5 years, and that's fun because I get to talk to people from all over the world in different parts of manufacturing. TEDx talk, you know what? That's just way too much work. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to go there.
Hopefully Randy doesn't hear this part of the interview and suddenly tell you that's your next step.
He
Hey,
could.
when you were just saying like you started to imagine yourself having a conversation with someone, I'm always curious how you defined who that someone was, because clearly, as we'll find from the guest speakers who come, that it wasn't just people in manufacturing who resonated with this conversation, but you clearly had an idea of a type of person, whether it was a level of leadership or the sector they were in. So who was that person you were going to be sitting across from having a conversation through this book?
Most of the people with the clients that I work with and the audiences that I do best with is they're already doing things well, but they want to be able to do them better. When I have somebody at the end of a program and they come in, they're like, "Oh, my company really needs you." I'm like, there is not a chance your company is going to bring me in and work with me because they're not getting it. So I really like people who are getting it, but maybe they need an outside voice. Maybe they're because, we get so focused on the things that we're doing of just being able to take it outside and to give them ideas. With my programs, they are just actionable. I like things, I'm not going to come in with the theory of 52 ways to build a strategic plan or something like that. It's like, this is what you can do on Monday, whether you're going to a plant, to an office, to a healthcare facility, whatever it is, that you can build better relationships with your people, so you not only keep the people that you have, but you attract the people that you need.
I was looking which books were, in the second and third slots in the places that you're number one. And it's sort of interesting the company you're keeping as far as like the books. But when you're writing a book, some of these books may not have even been out, right? But like there were certain books you were probably looking at and seeing, oh, like who else is speaking on this topic and what am I adding to the conversation? So what is a differentiator or something that's unique about the way you're bringing this in? Not just the fact that you've got this great storytelling capability, which almost tricked a lot of us,
Yes.
I will say, in the opening parts of the book. But other than your talent as a writer, what's sort of different about the way you're approaching this conversation from other books that you might be compared to?
Well, I think that there's books that are looking from AI from a technical standpoint, and then books that are looking at workplace culture. And this one really takes that happy medium, joining the technology. I didn't want it to be perceived as an anti-technology or anti-AI book, because goodness knows I use AI every day, and I cannot even begin to tell you how much it has helped me in my business, but also realizing with the customers and clients that I work with that, we're trying to figure all of this stuff out as far as, how do we take this and make sure that it's going in with our other systems, that this new automation is going to connect with this automation system, with this AI system, with all of that, but remembering the people are part of that system. Your workplace culture is part of that system. Culture is part of the infrastructure. It's just as important as accounting and finance and purchasing and warehousing and all of the other things that we pay specific attention to. I want to make sure that the people component, that the human component is deemed to be just as important.
You just kind of stole my next question, so I'm going to
Oh,
ask you to add on to it. That's great. No, I saw some people nodding as you were saying that. I was thinking about, like, what is the crystallized takeaway message that, reader could share with a colleague is one way to think about that. But also you as the author had a particular understanding of what you wanted people to walk away thinking. So what are some of those key takeaways? You just touched on a few of them, but how would a reader, share this conceptually as, like you said, it's a different kind of book and it has a different kind of message.
well, if we think about the characters that are in the book, I mean, Marta, for one, Marta had been with Oak Ridge Industries for 37 years. And over the time of her being there, she had built up what I like to refer to as a sensory library. And that Marta could, when she was in the plant, I mean, she could hear when things might be going wrong, or see things, or feel things, or just all of that, because she had been around the equipment for so long. And then Devin comes in and he's brand new. Think about him as your new employee who's trying to learn. And we're getting those two together. But when Marta sees a problem and she wants to give it to management, and Devin's like, well, should we tell somebody? And she's like, they're not going to listen anyway. So here's a person with all of this experience who knows stuff, who knows that something doesn't feel right and something can happen. But because the dashboards are saying, hey, everything looks great, because maybe the AI or the automation hasn't seen what Marta is seeing or feeling there. And there's only so many times that they can shut Marta down to say, you know what, that's okay. Just go back to work. Everything's fine. That she's going to be like, why should I bother? And when your experienced employees start saying, well, why should I bother? Well, that's a problem.
Yeah, that whole idea that the dashboard has all green lights, but the knowledgeable veteran employee has a gut that something's off, but no one's listening. Like, such a miss. And then the new people coming in don't have that same instinct because they don't have enough knowledge yet. So, once the people, as you were mentioning earlier, like once they retire, the turnover is going to really leave a vacuum of knowledge. Now,
Yeah.
you got some early advanced reader comments this time around. We did a real push to get advanced reviews from your launch team. You had over 50 of those reviews come in. We've got about 30 something of those reviews already on Amazon. Hopefully, more will be coming in later this week from them and from others. Did anything strike you as far as some of the early comments that people were making about the book? You were just on the cusp of sharing it publicly when those reviews started coming in. It's always a nice moment to get people reflecting back to you what they're seeing.
Well, it was impressive to me because, of course, I went through and I read all the comments, and besides the official Amazon reviews, it was really delightful to get some of the personal emails from people from the launch team that reached out to me and just expressed how much they like the book. And a lot of my speaker friends who helped me in the launch, Yeah, they're not in manufacturing. So the fact that number one, they read a book that purported to be a manufacturing book, but just getting back to say, you know what, this is such an important work. This is the message that needs to come out. This is the right time for it to come out. And you did it in such a beautiful, creative way of bringing the story in and kind of interspersing that throughout with the nonfiction ideas and strategies that people can use, actually use in their manufacturing plant. So I think for me, it was just really cool that they got it when I was reading it, going, yeah, there wasn't the explanation. There didn't seem to be a lot of confusion. So it's like, okay, all of that work and reading it and editing it again and again and again and again paid off, and it did what I wanted it to do, and it resonated with the people the way that I hoped that it would.
Well, and like as you mentioned earlier, your book has hit number one now a number of times in the pre-launch and now on launch day as well. So fantastic to see that other people are gravitating towards it. I am curious about anything that you might have done differently. I mean, this is book number 13. Did you approach the writing or the launch or any other piece of this process? Like, give us a little peek behind the scenes.
Oh, I did everything different with this book. And again, I decided to basically blindly follow whatever Randy told me to do, because Randy is a New York Times bestselling author, and well, I'm not. And so when he said, well, with the cover, because with the cover, I would just go to Fiverr or Upwork or something and pay somebody a minimal amount of money to create the cover for me. And Randy's like, no, you need to have a design contest on 99 designs, and we're going to put this prize money out there. So I ended up having about 20 different designers competing for the book cover. I think I had about 106 different covers to choose from. And actually, the artist that did Smart Plant, when he first submitted the work, it was the robot hand coming down, and the human hand had a wrench in it. And it was like I liked the concept of it, and we just kept working and working and working and tweaking, and it went from a teal background to the bright yellow that it is now. And we took the wrench out and made it just a little bit more Michelangelo-esque in the design. So the design was different. The special edition hardcover that is also on Amazon with the Kindle is actually a dust jacketed hardcovered book, which I had never done before. This is my first hardcover, much less a dust jacketed hardcover. And I found out that dust jackets are really, really a pain in the butt to design and to upload to Ingram Spark. So that was a lesson. I had Randy gave me access to his editor that he's used again for his New York Times best-selling books. And so I had and I always used editors, just again, not to the extent and the quality that Randy gave me access to. So there was a lot of difference in there, and just the opportunity to run things by him, get the feedback, go and work on it more. So yeah, there's a lot of love. Well, and then the other thing too, how could I forget this? My 200 plus interviews that I did, I actually found an AI program, because all of my podcast interviews are in their own channel on YouTube. And I found this program that basically mined the transcripts of all 209, I think it was, episodes. There was more than 1 million words of content in those 200 plus interviews. So again, the amount of work of going through and finding the exact right quotes to feature a variety of people. There's a couple people in the book that are quoted twice. And some of them had quotes that I could have used 5 or 6 of them, but because I had so many professionals giving me their time and conversations, I really wanted to feature. So I believe there are 23 different people who are quoted in the book. So that was completely different as well from anything I've ever done before. So basically everything was different.
And then Randy was like, "Oh, you got to work with Robbie." And then I made you do the launch different. So
Yeah, he did. That was the other thing too, because you and I worked together for the Kindle flash sale last year, and I knew you did a great job. But then Randy's like, "Yeah, and you have to hire Robbie to do the whole book launch." I'm like, "Okay, Randy, I'm just going to do whatever you tell me." And obviously, it's working. So I
yeah,
took
at some
really
point
good
you probably want to
advice.
take your checkbook back from him because he's going to keep writing checks for you to do good stuff in the world. I
Yeah.
mean, it's great to have someone like that in your corner. I mean, he at the same time that this was happening, he was coming out with his latest book. So he was in tandem getting ready for a
Yes.
launch that I got to support him on. So this is really exciting. And you mentioned earlier that some of your colleagues were not in manufacturing, but still like really understood the essence of this book and saw it as a leadership book. And this is actually an opportunity now for you to introduce one of those people. Why don't you introduce your first guest speaker?
Yeah. Dr. Tamsin Astor is a friend of mine, and we met, I believe it was during the pandemic because she was interested. Somebody connected me with her, and she was really interested in NSA Ohio, but we weren't meeting in person at that time because of the pandemic. So I invited Tamsin over my house to watch the Zoom meeting of the NSA Ohio National Speakers Association, not the other one, to come over. And we became fast friends after that. She just introduced her new podcast. I was one of her guests. So it's just been really fun to have the friendship that we have. But as she will, when I bring her on, give you some insights on the book, but she is not in manufacturing. And I think by her saying, Lisa, this is not a manufacturing book. This is a leadership book, and these are the reasons why. And she just gave me the insight that I enjoyed. So I am so excited for you to meet my friend, Dr. Tamsin Astor.
Thank you so much for having me here, Lisa, and congratulations on your 13th book. The first house I lived in as a child was house number 13. That was the house that my parents took me home from the hospital. So I've always thought of 13 as a good luck number as well, not as a scary number. Robbie, shall I just talk about it, or do you want to question me?
No, just jump right in.
So I read this book expecting it to be, a case study about automation gone wrong. But instead, I really felt like I got this kind of almost sort of devastating meditation on what happens when an organization stops trusting human intelligence and starts worshiping the dashboard, right? So this sort of sense of, the journey that we're taken on with Marta, of the 30-year veteran, right? The 500 consecutive days, zero downtime. 6 days later, the entire thing is offline. And over the next 9 weeks, this massive thing escalates, right? We have $615,000 in damage, and then becomes a 1.3 million problem because of all of the sort of cascade of senior operators leaving and customers shopping elsewhere. So the first thing that struck me about this book in terms of leadership was that it's about the culture that overrode Marta, right? As Lisa just said, Marta had this sensory library that she'd built up, and like a doctor and somebody who's in the field, yes, we've got all the data and the tests and the science, but there's this sort of deeper knowing that's hard to, wean ourselves off, and is really important not to ignore. And that really, to me, as a neuroscientist, spoke about pattern recognition at scale, right? I feel that this book is really, that it is like an entire book written around what it looks like when we ignore that human pattern recognition, right? The third thing that struck me, I am a neuroscientist who studies habits in team systems and relationships. And for me, this book really presented a very different argument about AI in comparison to automation. Because, when we look at and think about habits, a lot of it is, what are we trusting? What data are we trusting, right? Are we trusting ourselves? Are we trusting other people? Habits are automation. Once our brain has created automation, we stop thinking about it. We stop having access to it. And actually, in the definition of a habit, it's something that is hard to change, right? So what this, to me, fell into this kind of concept of cognitive authority, right? Which is this, the trusting even when we shouldn't, right? And we've all seen that. We've gone into Claude or Chat or whoever you use, right? And seen these like very compelling studies. And then you dig a little bit deeper and you're like, wow, those were completely made up, right? So when we, right? So when we transfer, cognitive authority to a system and away from a human, we create the situation. And I think my favorite quotation in that was, defaults teach faster than any training program will. So I felt like a lot of this was a kind of the sort of compounding micro erosions that I see in burned out leaders, in disconnected teams, in, CEOs who can't figure out why a great culture is losing its people, right? Because maybe we are creating so many automations, we're forgetting the human, the human element, right? And the sort of final piece that really stuck out for me with the work I do, and the piece that wasn't initially kind of obvious to me, but became clear as I read this book, was that I felt like this book provided an architectural case and a sort of validation for the work I do, right? Because part of the work I do with leaders is I help them create habits and cultivate a regulated nervous system so they can propel themselves towards success. And part of that is the ability to tolerate friction and the recognition and importance of designing friction into a system, into a workflow. And one of the things that we've spent a lot of time as our culture in the last few years doing, and AI has done a brilliant job of, is getting rid of friction, right? So, even when it's like somebody texts you something incredibly emotional and you get on your phone and your phone just generates a generic, I'm so sorry for your loss, right? Like, that's not appropriate to send to a really good friend, if they're going through some serious trauma. So it's this sort of friction piece that to me was really interesting. And, I work in the space of conscious leadership. And I think everybody is a leader. We all lead in different areas of our life. It's not a title for me. It's about how you show up in your life. And conscious leadership, I define as conscious, are you aware? Leadership of your impact and influence, right? So it's vital to be able to perceive and discern the human authority in a system and not delegate it to AI. And if we can't tolerate that friction, we can't protect the moments where human judgment lives, right? And that to me is a really important part of this. If we can't tolerate friction and we automate friction out of everything we do, right? And, there are some areas of my life where I'm like, hell yes, let's get rid of all of that friction. If I could have a robot put my laundry away, I might. Not sure I want it living in my house, but I love the idea that a robot comes into my house and does my laundry and puts it away, right?
Yes.
So, I think for me, this whole idea of friction also really kind of, sat there with it. So those are some of the observations I made.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, that is something that we try to get rid of. So I'm glad too that you picked up on that friction part. Like, friction is good. So thanks. I really appreciate you coming, joining me.
You're welcome.
All right. So Robbie, am I going with the next?
Please do.
Okay. All right. Well, I am going to bring my friend Roger Atkins on the screen. Roger is the president of the National Tooling and Machining Association. And the fun fact with Roger is that the first time we worked together, and I was keynoting for one of the NTMA programs here in Cleveland, it was March 9th of 2020. So it was the very last in-person program that I did before the world shut down for a couple of years. And because NTMA is about 12 minutes from my house, Roger and I have continued to be good buddies. We worked on several projects together. We continue to work together. And the work that he does for the NTMA is just amazing. So Roger, and plus he's on the cover of my book. So how could I not? I mean, it's Roger and Randy Gage. How could I not have invited Roger to be here? So
Well, thanks, Lisa. And I would just say it just shows maybe desperation on your part to put me on your book, but I'm honored. Um, as Lisa said, our paths crossed, in 2020. And, one thing that I've always believed in and have been in manufacturing my entire career was that the only thing that separates any company, we can all have the exact same equipment, same products, but at the end of the day, the thing that separates us is our people. And that's really the separation. And so when Lisa and my paths cross, that's Lisa's magic was the people. And that's what I've appreciated about Lisa, that she hasn't lost the fact that people are what make her companies successful. And so I must admit up front, be transparent, I'm a Lisa fan. Um, my wife would like for me to be a wife fan. Sometimes she thinks I'm more of a Lisa fan, but my wife actually loves Lisa and has been to her conferences before and appreciates that as a layman not in manufacturing. But I represent over 1,000 manufacturing companies in the United States. And what's unique is, um, we live in a day and time for manufacturers that automation and AI are the top of the list of every conversation. It's automation and AI. Primarily, automation's driven from, seeing the boomers leaving the industry and leaving with all that knowledge and, us trying to replace the boomer generation in our workforces. And no, as I tell people all the time, I said, you have to do the same amount of work or more work with the same number or less people. And so automation and AI seem to be the answer. But as I say, with every great revolution, and I think AI and automation is a great revolution. It is really changing the manufacturing landscape. It's changing so many things in our life. But what I always look at is the unintended consequences that they bring. Every good thing brings some unintended consequences. And I think that what I've appreciated about Lisa's book is Lisa is not let the unintended is trying to identify the unintended consequence of letting people go, forgetting your people. And she's one of the few people that I've read in all the stuff I've read about really about AI, is not many people are keeping AI connected to your people. It's how AI enhances your people's ability to help run your company more efficiently, more productively, and to create a value for your company by utilizing these tools. And I think that, Lisa, this book is to show you don't separate the two. Don't separate one from the other. And I think so much of what we read today and sort of the real push today is that it's all AI or nothing. Well, that's partially true, but it's AI with your people. How does that combination? It's those that can cross that line of automation and AI with your people are going to be the most successful. Because now you can read for every 5 articles you read about AI, you get one article that's saying it's not moving me anywhere. Maybe it's because we've separated the AI enhancement from our people. And so I think that's the difference. And then being able to keep the knowledge transfer of those leaving your company, how AI and can help bring that to a way that you don't lose all that tribal knowledge, the things that people have been walking out of the doors for years, and us manufacturers are suffering the consequences of that. And so again, AI has opened so many doors, but I think the message that I appreciate about Lisa's book is that don't let it disconnect from your people.
Right.
Work them in tandem, and I believe that will be the success of what AI brings. Because I think if you're all AI, you're going to look up and you're going to be running. You're not going to have people, and all of a sudden you're going to have a train crash, and the
Right.
train crash is going to be solved by people. And
Yeah.
so, Lisa, congratulations. I couldn't be more proud of you. I like the doctor. 13 is my favorite number. I'm a Friday the 13th birthday guy. I was 13 on Friday the 13th. So, and my wife is a Friday the 13th person, and she was also a 13th birthday. So 13 is a great number. I couldn't think of a better number book that I would love to be a part of with you, Lisa. So I'm
Well,
so
thank
proud of
you.
you.
Well,
And
that's
thank
funny
you.
because I was actually Scott and I celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary on April 13th.
Oh,
So there you
perfect.
go, all these tie-ins. The thing that Roger brought up though that I just have to say is we go to a lot of conferences. I speak at a lot of conferences. And if I'm competing against an AI program, I mean, because AI is this shiny object that everybody goes, we need workplace culture, but we're chasing AI, and this book brings those both nicely together so that it's not a one or the other. So thank you again, Roger. And now I want to introduce my friend Vince. And the thing that with Vince is him and I met, and I don't even know what year it was. We both speak at FabTech, which is a manufacturing association with five major associations coming together for this big event every year. And Vince has been on my podcast twice. And one of the quotes that he talked about was the fact that a lot of people are treating treating AI like a tech install. And it was really that quote that kind of kicked off the book, and everything was built around that. So again, having this cautionary tale that it's a tool, but we can't just check the box that, oh, we're using AI and forget about all the people that we still need. So with that, come on, Vince, and love to hear more about that.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Congratulations on your book. And it was kind of funny because when I got your email that said, "Hey, can I have permission to quote you in the book?" I'm like, absolutely, 100%. What did I say? You know,
Yeah,
because you and I connected from the get-go on the people side of things. And it doesn't really matter what technology that you're utilizing in your manufacturing organization. If you don't have people behind it, you're not going to get done what you need to get done. And the big quote that Lisa and I kind of connect on is that we both agree that people matter.
right.
And with all of this discussion about AI and what can it do and what can't it do, what we do is make sure that whatever technology people are using, they're dealing with trusted data. But that trust goes two ways. Number one, the people have to trust where the data is coming from. And the people, if they're inputting data, they have to be trustworthy people in order to have that data be trusted. And so what we do is we make sure that the people understand what they're doing and why. How do they integrate with the whole process? And I think the book is sorely needed. I mean, Dr. Astor talked about friction, and it's really in the friction where you're going to make the greatest gains, because that's where the rubber hits the road. That's really where all of the advancement takes place. Because I think without friction, you don't have change. And I really think that this book is going to be a great driver to further the conversation on not just what are you changing to, but why are you changing? What's the benefit? And really getting it back to how that matters to the people, I think is crucial. So again, Lisa, congratulations on, I think you nailed it. I think you really
Thank
did
you.
with this book.
Well, and I think it's part of reminding of the fact it's not AI for the sake of AI. It's not automation for the sake of automation, of taking that step back and looking at what are we trying to accomplish here in the whole system that we're putting together, and how we're having the right tools, but again, the right people. Because I know so many people have come in and they bring in this brand new system that they didn't get any feedback from their people on. And their people are like, I'm not going to use that. That's what do you want from me? Because we're looking at those bright, shiny objects. So again, if we consider our people to be the bright, shiny objects that we need to run our businesses, then we're probably going to end up being further ahead. So again,
Yeah.
thank you guys all so much for joining me today. I'm so glad you're here and privileged that you accepted my invitation.
Oh my gosh, what a great conversation about this. I don't know how many launch parties you've done in the past, but I love the idea that we brought in these guest speakers to share their perspectives. We got a chance to dive into a conversation with you. In a moment or two, we're going to have a chance to do some Q&A and then some hangout with you as well. Right now, we're going to do a group photo, and then we're going to give away some prizes. So if you're able to, sit up a little straighter. Look for the camera, which should be somewhere eye level across from you, and we'll take a little group photo. I will let you know when to say cheese so that we can do that. I see some cameras coming on. Thank you so much, Marilyn. All right, with that, here we go. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Fantastic. No one blinked. I love that. All right, back to the show. Let's do that little prize wheel I showed you earlier. I put everyone's name on who had participated by registering for the event. So thank you for all those, whether they're here currently or popped in for a minute or had to go. We're gonna give away. Are we giving away 3 signed copies of the book?
Yes.
In
Yes, we
these,
are.
it's gonna be the beautiful book with the hardcover and the dust
Yes.
jacket because you can't sign a Kindle book. That's cool.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Trust me, Roger, I've tried. Here's the first one. Alois. Fantastic.
Okay.
We'll drop that in here in the chat. All right. We'll remove that person and we'll go to the next person. We'll spin. Even makes the noise. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. Sounds like it's real.
Yeah. And
All
Barry.
right. And Gary Moniak.
Congratulations to Barry. And last one. Up. Right over the line. And Crystal. Congratulations to all
Mr.
3 of
Carter.
them. Put their information. There you go. And you'll reach out to them to get their address and all the other good things so we can make sure we know how to reach them. Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to just talk about the importance of reviews, and then I want to give you an opportunity to talk about how people can stay in touch and support this work going forward. We mentioned at the top that there's 30 something reviews, 50 something have been collected. Here's why I focus so much on reviews as a book launch strategist. There's social proof on the book's sales page. And this is the kind of book that we want people to know is different, is valuable, is connected to a larger leadership conversation. And the way prospective readers will find that out is by looking at reviews. And over 90% of buyers check reviews before making a purchase. So even having 30 or 40 or 50 reviews can make a real difference because each one of those reviews can help amplify the possibility of who buys it in the future and also who books you to be brought in. So let's talk about that. First, I'm going to drop into the chat some resources about writing a review. I do want to mention that this is not a 4th grade book report. I think sometimes people who don't write reviews get a little like, oh, like first of all, you don't have to stand in front of the room. You really like 3 sentences is all we need. Okay. And there's some prompts in the chat that will help you write a helpful review. Tells what other people might expect from reading it. What stood out to you? Who do you think it's great for? And we saw a lot of really great reviews come in, Lisa. So for how people can stay in touch with you is you're a professional speaker. I know you through the National Speakers Association. That's one of the many ways you share what you know in the world. And I think you're looking for people to brainstorm with you how you can be brought into their industry, their association, their organization, not like they're a decision maker who's hiring you, but maybe someone who can help you figure out how to navigate that. So what would you like to add to that request? And then we'll tell people how to let us know they're available to do that.
Oh, sure. Well, and with the new book, of course, that's going to be a new keynote or workshop that will be coming along with that. And I think just looking for, instead of when you're trying to compress, over 200 pages of a book into an hour-long keynote, for example, what are the biggest takeaways and from the book that audiences, that's what we need to focus on. So just really from a standpoint of the the information that would be the most helpful that was picked up from the book, and a lot of that is coming in through the reviews. So those are super helpful. As I look around the people who joined us today, I want to call out my friend Bob Madison, because Bob and I met many years ago when I spoke for a precast concrete company, and we have continued to stay in touch. And I think that that's when I'm working with a client, because there are so many speakers out there. Roger knows, because he's get hit up, on a regular basis with speakers trying to speak to the NTMA. But it's those relationships that, continue to develop. I don't, take my check and go home, for example.
Right.
And I really like working with the clients, having these kind of conversations as far as, yeah, I know what I can bring, but what do your people need and want to hear? Because it's not about me, it's about them.
So
And
if you're willing to be part of that conversation,
yeah,
I'm just going to let people know that they can
yeah,
write the word brainstorm, just like Marilyn just did. If you
yeah.
write the word brainstorm in the chat, then Lisa's going to reach out to you about scheduling a chat to have a conversation to find out what you're looking for, how Lisa can be helpful, um, and also, she doesn't know what associations you have a relationship with. She doesn't know other leadership groups you might be a part of where this conversation could be taking place. So some of those insights are just really helpful to a speaker. We're always just trying to get what we know out to the people who need it most, and you're part of that. You all know who needs it most. So hopefully we can make that happen. Lisa, I'm going to shift gears to your final couple of
Okay.
questions. If people do have questions for Lisa, this is a great time to drop them into the chat. Again, if you don't mind writing their word question in all caps first, so I can spot it and know that it's a question, not a comment. But we did pre-write a few questions just to kind of kick things off. And for those who are able to stay after, we'll do a little informal hangout where people can ask you questions on air. But for now, let's just kick it off with this first question. Your new book is obviously centered around workforce challenges and technology. But for organizations listening today that want help beyond reading the book, what does working with you actually look like?
Well, that's one of the nice things about technology. I mean, during the pandemic, I got lots of practice doing virtual programs. And for some people, that's an option for them, whether it be from a budget standpoint or a timing standpoint, or they have people all over the country and they want to be able to bring us all together virtually. That's an option. But, working in person with the organization, whether it be a keynote at a conference, whether it be coming in and doing, like, a lot of my work that I'm doing, speaking at conferences, have to do with more the leaders, owners, the C-suite, the people who are in the room at those conferences, but going and working individually with their teams. Because a lot of times when leaders come back from a conference, it's like, they have a list of their 22 things that they want done, tomorrow. And their staff is like, oh no, he just came back from a conference. Let's just ignore everything that he just says for the next 2 weeks until things get back to normal. So when I come in and I work with the staff themselves, it's a completely different program, because I'm talking to them about the power that they have to get their voices heard, to communicate better, to find the good. Of course, gratitude and strategy is part of all of the conversations, but there's different levels. I've been doing this business full time now for 16 years, after having a sales career, 26 years, 13 years of which was in the industrial sales background. So I can relate to people. And I think that just having a conversation organization wide is really one of my superpowers, and I love working with groups. So I
Well,
hope that
actually,
answered your question.
yeah, my follow-up then is because we know you kind of as a keynote, but it sounds like there are other formats. So share a little bit about the other types of ways you interact with a client.
Yeah, well, like for Roger's group, I'm certified in the DISC assessment. We've done that. I'm actually here in New Orleans. I'm in my friend Val's apartment. Thank you, Val, for letting me use your space, because I'm doing an 8-hour workshop tomorrow to a group of industrial hygienists. So it really goes for anywhere from the 45-minute to hour-long keynote to the 8-hour program. Probably my sweet spot is probably going to be in that half day, that 2.5 hour to 4 hour workshop. The 8 hour is my first one, so that's going to be an interesting experience. But thank God I'm a really good facilitator, and I'm just going to make those people talk to each other.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Well, for people who are thinking like my organization definitely needs all of this, this sounds great. Like, what is the first step a lot of them would take to engage with you?
Yeah, well, my website at Lisa Ryan Speaks, there is a lot of information there, not only on my programs that are personalized for every group that I speak to. So I say that's going to give us a starting point as far as the topic, but then it'll be personalized to you. I also have a lot of resources that I post on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, every week, I have my Cracking the Retention Code newsletter that comes out, and I see some of the people that I've interviewed on my podcast. I see Eknath is here, and Marilyn is here, and Vince is here, that not only do their podcasts go on the air, but then I take those and I make those into articles, and they are in the Cracking the Retention Code newsletter. So there's a lot of free ways to access me on YouTube and LinkedIn, and then my website gives you the opportunities to work more personally and directly.
Fantastic. Yeah, I dropped a link to your website and to your LinkedIn into the chat. We'll make sure, obviously, people who are getting the replay get access to all of that as well. Speaking of which, we're wrapping up the formal live portion of the program and shifting gears to hanging out with you a little more informally. I want to thank anyone who is watching the replay for sticking around to the very end to celebrate all of the amazing success that you've had, Lisa. We're looking forward to what comes of this, because this is really just the beginning of a really important conversation you're bringing to the forefront. So congratulations, Lisa.
Thank
And
you.
now we will informally shift over to the Hangout.